All right, so let's take a look at what Reach has done. Now, I mentioned that this type of quotation integration works for everything, not simply fictional material, not simply narrative material. It can work for non-narrative as well. So we're looking at Reach's non-narrative analysis. Her claim in the article, a new meaning for cutting classes, Javier C. Hernandez develops emotion through the use of conflict. Okay, so very clear four-part literary analysis claim. We know we're talking about the development of emotion, some sort of pathos claim through conflict. So this, you can get the sense that this writer is going to develop some conflict and make us feel something through it. Let's look at the quotation. Richa, where do you want us to start? What's the quotation that you want to focus on?
The middle one.
The middle one. So the one I want. They have. Okay, I got it. So we are starting with this quotation. Let's take a look at her step one. They have many hard decisions to make and do not know which would be the right ones and which would not. Let's go a sentence back. New York City, principals have the pressure to maintain a good academic level with the 5% money. They have many hard decisions to make and do not know which would be the right ones and which would not. It's tough, said Melissa Avery. So this is step one. What do I know? I know we're talking about New York City. I know we're talking about principals. I know basically context is that they're making hard decisions in the face of budget cuts. Okay, so I've gotten some good context. So when somebody says it's tough, I know exactly what that person is referring to. So I think step one is done well. It's tough, said Melissa Avery, principal of PS 237, which earned an A on its report card from the city this year. I want to be held accountable. I'm always open to that. But you are stripping me of funds that have helped me become successful. This is just one example of the okay, so step two is done pretty well. It has not been joined to the sentence, but it still seems to flow pretty well for me. What do you think makes it difficult? This is a unique quotation. What makes it difficult for Richa to join her words with this quotation? What's different about this quotation? It's embedded. Very good, Sonia. Embedded quotations. So hold on. You have two people talking in the quotation and you want to bring Richa's voice into it also, that might be a little bit too much. So the division, the wall between these two makes sense because tripling up the number of voices in a single sentence may be a bit confusing. Okay, so step two is done fine. She broke the rule that I gave you for a good purpose. This is just one example of the conflict that Hernandez uses to help the readers understand the emotion the principals are going through. What's missing in number three? How's number three a little bit weak here? She's got the right idea, but it's not quite everything I'd want to see. Christian?
Well, it just kind of says an example. Doesn't really say how the quote.
It says it is an example, but it doesn't tell me how it is an example. Let's imagine that I gave you that quotation from a separate piece with the boys on the train. They're fresh, energetic, they're clean, whatever, they're going places. So I give you that quotation. In step three, I should refer to specific words and say the word fresh, the word clean, the word energetic. All carry a strong positive connotation of renewal and life, youth. Knowles picks these words intentionally to convey this positive impression. Thus, he helps the reader understand the idealistic, youthful, and ultimately naive view that Jean and Brinker received from the boys on the train. Now my step three has just made use of the quotation by actually referring to parts of the quotation. That's an effective step three. Christian's right. Richa has kind of given mouth service to step three, and that's kind of saying she's said, yeah, there's a step three there, and here you go. But it's not really effectively used. An effective use is to say how this quotation specifically addresses. Richa, did you have an idea of how to write step three for this to improve it? No? Okay, let me see if I can do it. I'll just riff off the top of my head. It's tough, said Melissa Avery, principal of PS 273, which earned an A on its report card from the city last year. I want to be held accountable. I'm always open to that, but you are stripping me of funds that have helped me become successful. This quotation presents a conflict between a likable protagonist, Melissa Avery, and an evil, faceless antagonist, the administration. This quotation helps the reader side with teachers and principals in fighting what is considered to be a good fight. By sketching the conflict in this way, through this quotation, readers side with Melissa Avery, feel sympathy for her, and want her to win. That's a rough draft, but that's pretty much where I would go with that. I'd say here's the conflict that comes out of this quotation, and here's how it affects emotion. Okay? Let's take a look at our next one. Principal Cindy Diaz-Burgos, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, stated another example that helped the readers realize the emotional value of this change. She said that, oh, and there's some seamless integration. We no longer have embedded quotations, so that works. It's like being diabetic. The doctor gives you medication and your levels are good, and then he suddenly decides to take you off. We need all the money we can get. And then I'd say you skip step 3, you rush into a conclusion. All right? Step 3 here would be, this quotation further develops the conflict initially established by the Melissa Avery quotation. Here, we see that a principal shares the same conflict. Through this quotation, Hernandez has reinforced the conflict, thus reinforcing the emotion. There you go. Detailed, specific. Sometimes, if you follow my coaching and writing, it might be a little bit overkill, but I would much rather have you making a mistake on explaining it too much and in too much detail than on the other side. And Reach's paper, which is actually fairly decent, and especially for coming about 6 weeks ago, or 6 or 8 weeks ago, it's an exceptionally good paper, has everything in the right place, and you can see that what we're doing right now is just fine-tuning it. Saying, yeah, you've got basically everything here, but there's something that's subtly weak here and something that's missing even though you wouldn't notice it here. So follow this 3-step quotation integration, and if you master the 3-step process, once you've got it down, you're going to start playing with it. You'll start modifying it for your own purposes. You'll start switching things around when it makes sense. But the first thing I want you to do is just learn the method. So Omar's already talking about doing something more advanced, using quotations in a subtly different way. That's great. And Omar and everybody else, you will get to that point. But what I want you to master right now is basic method. And then you can start breaking rules. Learn the rules before you break them. Questions? No?